Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Camille Rutherford, and welcome to today's presentation on social media and student engagement. The educational landscape is being inundated with new social media resources. Each week, a new social media resource appears, and teachers try to figure out how to use it in their classroom. As the landscape becomes more scattered with these resources, educators are left perplexed as to what resource I should use and why should I even consider using it. I hope that this presentation can help make sense of what is happening and help educators to understand how social media can be used to support student engagement. The first question is, exactly what is social media? We hear the term all the time, but rarely see a definition. The key attribute of social media is its focus on social. Social media can be characterized as Web 2.0 resources that emphasize active participation, connectivity, collaboration, and sharing of knowledge and ideas among users. These are the types of characteristics that educators have been desiring in their classroom for decades. Active participation, collaboration, and sharing, we know can have a significant impact on student learning. One of the benefits of social media is that it facilitates social learning. Social learning takes place without the need of a formal instructor. It's based on relationships, and its very nature is organic and interactive. Social media often looks like this. You have a friend, your friend knows something, you don't, and your friend shows you how to do it. It also looks like this. Peers working together to solve a problem. You know how to do something, and I don't, so please help me learn how to do this. It mimics the learning that takes place in the real world. Social learning has also been shown to correlate with student engagement. Student engagement is at the epicenter of what educators are trying to do every day. So let's take a look at specifically what student engagement is. Research has shown that these four key indicators are contributing factors to student engagement: academic engagement, affective engagement, behavioral engagement, and cognitive engagement. When we look at academic engagement, this is reflected in the amount of time a student spends actually engaged in academic pursuits. We can think of it as time on task. The more time students spend engaged in academic activities, the more likely they are to be successful. When we look at affective engagement, this refers to the sense of belonging and connection that students have with their peers, but also with their teachers. If students don't feel supported by their peers and teachers, they're less likely to be successful. When we look at behavior engagement, this is reflected in active participation in class. Do students just show up for class and put their head down? Or are they actively engaged, asking questions, participating in discussions? The more actively engaged students are, the more likely they are to retain the information being covered. And the last factor is cognitive engagement. Cognitive engagement refers not just to the degree of cognitive challenge, how hard something is, but also refers to the extent to which the cognitive challenge is relevant to the student's current and future aspirations. We've all heard stories of students that went through high school, got good grades, but in the end said, I never really learned anything. We don't want students cruising through school. We want them to learn and be engaged, cognitively challenged, but also be learning information that is relevant and meaningful to them. Each of these factors in and of themselves is really important, but their total is greater than the individual sums. When we put it all together, when we get it right, research has shown that student achievement will rise as well. The more likely students are to show up to school, be successful in school, and stay in school. And what we're all interested in is supporting student success. So now that we've seen the relationship between social learning and student engagement, and we can see that both the academic and social aspects of school life contribute to student success, especially for those students that are vulnerable to educational failure, that may withdraw or have learning or motivational difficulties. What might not be clear yet is how social learning and student engagement connects back to social media. In my opinion, social media can supercharge social learning and student engagement, as it takes all the benefits of learning and student engagement that we see here in the classroom and puts it here on computers at home. So now students can be engaged in and outside of class as well. When we look at some specific social media resources that have great portability, students can now bring that level of engagement with them wherever they are. It's like having your friends from school and your supportive teacher in your pocket. They can carry the benefits of social learning and student engagement with them to support them wherever they go, anywhere, and at any time. As educators, we've never had this kind of access to our students. We can now extend the learning experience beyond the 9 to 3 school day and beyond the boundaries of the classroom. Well, let's look at exactly how we can do that by using social media. Going back and looking at academic engagement, and again, remember that's reflected on the amount of time students spend engaged in academic pursuits. When we look at resources like Moodle and Ning that teachers have been using for a number of years already to hold the students' classroom resources so that students can access their learning materials at any time and from anywhere. We now see organizations like Google and Google Apps and Microsoft with Microsoft 365 EDU and BuddyPress, which is created by WordPress, creating similar resources that mimic the content management systems or learning management systems that universities and colleges have been using with their students for years. So now students can access their learning materials regardless of where they are. Now we don't have that excuse, I couldn't do my homework because I left my blank at home. Now they can access the resources from wherever they are. When we look at effective engagement, and again, that's the sense of belonging connection students have to their peers and to their teachers, we can see things like Facebook that were created solely to create networks, connections between students at Harvard University originally, and then spread around the world. MySpace was also a great way for people to connect to each other. But now we see teachers are using resources like blogs from bloggers or blogs from WordPress and creating individual or student blogs where students can use the commenting features and comment on each other's work. Very often they can make connections to commonalities that they may not have noticed before or create supportive comments to each other, enhancing the sense of belonging and connection. The more supported students feel by their learning community, the more likely they are to show up to school every day, stay in school, and be successful. When we look at behavioral engagement, and again, that's reflected in active participation in class, we see that tools like Wikispaces and Google Docs require active participation and collaboration. And now we can take those collaborative activities that students often did at school and they can continue to work on those outside of school. These type of tools are built on active participation. I've also included here Polldaddy, which I think is a great resource because you can insert polls in any type of blog or web page. And with a poll, they invite your engagement, they invite your participation. Many of these tools don't work very well if people don't actively participate in using them. And again, that last category, cognitive engagement, the level of cognitive challenge and challenge that is authentic and relevant to their current or future aspirations. If we want students to engage in authentic and real-world learning, we have to give them opportunities to connect with the real world. Tools like Twitter and Skype let students connect to the real world, to bring experts into your classroom, for students to be able to connect to an author of a novel, maybe they're studying in their literature class, and find out more about the writing process, connect to a scientist in their science class. I've seen a number of examples of students connecting to scientists at the North Pole or Antarctica. Those type of connections would not have been able to happen without these social media resources. As well, if we want students to see authentic learning tools and authentic real-world applications of what they're learning in school, resources like iTunes and YouTube are filled with great video clips and podcasts of real-world learning and challenges. Again, if we want our students to engage in authentic learning and resources, we need to connect them to the real world. As well, we can look at cognitive challenge and ensure that we're meeting our students' cognitive challenge by using things like Google's advanced search. Now you can search by reading level. So if you want to make certain you're having an appropriate cognitive challenge for your students, you can choose resources that are at a basic reading level, intermediate level, or advanced level. As well, if you're interested in multimodal learning, you can search for resources that use text, images, video, and then let students choose what educational resources is most relevant to their learning style. As we've seen the growth of all these social media resources, we start seeing things like this. This is a revised version of Bloom's taxonomy that takes into account all the different Google resources. It's a great tool and you should check it out online because it's all clickable. So that if you want students to engage in recall and remember something, they can select images from Picasa to help them recall information. They can use Google News to help them understand information. They can use Google Groups for analyzing, debating a specific topic. They can use Google Spreadsheets to analyze something. And as part of their culminating task, they can use YouTube videos and create their own videos to demonstrate what they have learned. We're also starting to see collections like this. This is again Bloom's taxonomy, but instead of Google tools, we now see apps. All of these resources can help us to use social media in the classroom. But we have to be cognizant. Even though there are many benefits, there are also many challenges. One of the first challenges is permission. None of the resources that I've talked about today were created by educators for educators. So very often teachers need to go out and get the permission from their school district, their school principal, and depending on the age of the students, maybe even the parents. Another challenge is privacy. How much information do we encourage our students to share? Who owns that information? This really necessitates that teachers support increased digital literacy, that we help our students mediate what is private and what is public, and help them to understand and very often keep separate their academic and personal uses of these social media resources. The last challenge is ads and revenue. There are significant ethical implications to requiring students to use a resource that generates revenue for some third party. All of the social media resources we have talked about need to generate revenue to keep going. And we need to stop and think to ourselves, how ethical is it that we are putting students in a position where they and their use may be making money from some corporate entity? I'd like to say I have the answers to these challenges, but I don't. Because these challenges can change depending on your individual educational context. The challenge of using social media in a high school is very different from using it in a middle or elementary school context. It's also very different when using social media in an urban community where Wi-Fi is plentiful and broadband is easily accessible, versus a rural community that is still reliant on dial-up. As well, using social media to support student engagement is also very different in an affluent community where even 10-year-olds have their own smartphones and come to school with a laptop under their arm, in comparison to economically challenged communities where students don't have internet access or even a computer at home at all. But just because there aren't any easy answer doesn't mean that we should give up. What we can do is go right back to these social media resources. We can go back to these resources that use active participation, collaboration, and sharing, and participate in the discussion of the benefits and challenges to using these resources. We can collaborate in coming up with solutions for some of these resources. And when we find solutions, again, use these social media resources to share our new knowledge and ideas. Thank you for participating in today's discussion. I hope you will be encouraged to use social media within your classroom. Thank you.